Hello DS artists and editors, I'm Jeff Krebs from Eyeon Software, and today I'm thrilled to be able to show you eyeon connection working with DS. In today's overview, we are going to be focusing specifically on the conduit between DS and Fusion and back. In January, we will be having a complete webinar specifically focusing on Fusion for the DS artist and editor. With that, let's take a little look at connection for DS. So the first thing you need to know is the system requirements. Your DS will need to be running 11.02 or higher for connection to work. And as expected, the RAM requirements will increase as well. So if you're planning on running Fusion and DS at the same time, a good starting point is 24 gigs of RAM. And of course, the more the better if your budget allows it. To begin with, when you download Connection, you'll need to put both Eyeon Connection, AVX2 plugin, and its companion Eyeon script in the AVX2 folder, and it's inside the DS directory. Once it's in DS, you could access the plugin under the video drop-down menu under AVX2 hosts. So how does connection work? Well, I'm going to show you the simplest use on a single clip with a very simple round trip. In the current release of Connection 1.5, here is how it works in DS. You can apply connection to your clip or clips on the DS timeline. DS simply addresses these effects on the timeline in a very ingenious way. Since you could apply connection as a clip effect or a track effect, it makes life so easy when you have to adjust the length of the effect. Note the way the color depth works. If you set the processing depth under the sequence preferences, the auto mode under the options menu in connection will follow along based on those settings. For 10-bit video, 16-bit flow will be just fine. So the first step is to get the footage from DS into Fusion. Here's how that happens. Click on the Export Clips button. A status bar will pop up sending the images over to Fusion. Once that happens, click on Edit Effect. Now, three things can happen with the edit effect. Number one, if Fusion isn't launched, it launches, just like this. If Fusion is already launched, it will send the images to Fusion as loaders, which are the sources, and a saver is created, which is the link back to the DS timeline. And three, if there's already a comp associated with DS and Fusion, it will reopen the comp for additional editing. So next, let me show you what happens when you apply an effect in Fusion and process it. Let's use something really simple, such as this color example. Add a color correction. We'll process it. And let's switch back to DS, and the results are shown up in the DS timeline. That's how easy the round trip works. Here's how versioning works with connection. Create a new version. Notice that the image goes back to the camera unprocessed image. This is explained in the manual. Switch over to Fusion. Notice the title has changed to version 2, but what really has happened is that Fusion has made a copy of the original comp. Let's modify the color, and when you render it, you'll notice the results are exactly the same. If you use the version slider, you can switch between version 1 and version 2. There's no limitation on the number of versions. As you know, the timeline is a place where you can view the results in relationship with the rest of the edit. That's why we added the version slider. You'll notice when you switch the slider that there's decimal places in the DS slider. It's not a showstopper issue, it's more cosmetic. That may be fixed in a Fusion AVX modification inside DS. So here's what's happening when you apply a connection effect. The second you apply it, a directory structure is automatically created. Here's what's inside that directory. You'll get a top-level directory. With that, you'll find two directories. One's called Avid, and the other is Fusion. Avid is where DS puts the original files, and Fusion contains the rendered results. It's a watch folder. When you create versions in Connection, you'll end up with a second render folder. Again, there is no limitation to the render folder count. Finally, you could also access Connection in your composite container. When you connect clips and images, they can be imported or linked and can be of any size. Embedded channels are also supported as well, both on the connection to Fusion and in the results created by Fusion. So in this case, I'll connect imported clips and link clips and clips with alpha channels. Use the same process as before, export the clips, and create a comp. Notice that the images are now in Fusion and all the frame sizes and channels are respected prior to leaving DS. Also note, you could also work with base layers and simply just drag and drop the link clips right into Fusion. As mentioned, I'll be doing a webinar in January that is specifically for DS users. There will be minimal 2D compositing, and I'll focus on 3D systems beyond what you may understand as 3D, as well as particle systems and new approaches to 3D compositing. That said, you can use all your DS tools prior to connection and then just use those results in Fusion as well. To save time, I have pre-created a comp that will be used in the upcoming webinar, but understand that the results simply repopulate the DS timeline. Contact eyeon to receive a Fusion license and connection for DS. It'll be great fun to experiment with this over the holiday season, and let's catch up in January with an extensive webinar where we'll expose really incredible tools with Fusion and dig much deeper into connections flexibility. Happy holidays, and I hope to hear from you soon.